Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have a special guest. She is the author of her memoir, A Tapestry of Pain, Growth, and Freedom Within My Spokes. No other than Miss Jenna Udenberg.
There.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Jenna. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am a retired music teacher. I come from the north shore of Lake Superior in Two Harbors, Minnesota, a small rural town. Um, I was a music educator for 19 years, and then due to the pandemic, I did a disability retirement, and now I'm a disability activist and accessibility educator, and I wrote my memoir in July of 2023.
Miss Jenna Udenberg, thank you so much for sharing your memoir to the world. So, what is the central themes of your memoir?
So, in creating the memoir, it was way more about not just my story, but the tapestry of life. So, all the different lives that have made me who I am, whether it was other teachers in my growing up time, whether it was my biological family, whether it was chosen family or spiritual family. And then just sharing my stories of becoming a wheelchair user at age 8. I was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis at age 7. And really all the different stories of like it says, pain, growth, and freedom. So going through the painful
Yes.
times to get the growing times to then finding freedom in new identities and new opportunities.
So, what role does pain play in your journey toward growth and freedom?
It's huge, right? Like if life is always going great, we have no need to make lemonade out of the lemons, right? so
Yes, true.
so pain a lot of times is those hard lemons, and many times it's physical pain for me, being arthritis and having joints that don't work the same. I've had 6 total joint replacements. I've had, I think, my upcoming surgery will be surgery number 18 if I've counted them correctly, starting at age 15, and now I'm 44. And so the physical pain brings about a lot of self growth, self reflection, self deprecation sometimes, right? That then leads to mental health needs or issues. And then it just also shows the need that we have for community and for connection and belongingness.
So, Miss Jenna, can you describe the spokes metaphor and how it ties into overall message of the book?
Yeah, great question. So many times people that are not in disability culture think that we are wheelchair bound or that being in a wheelchair is a prison or a bad thing, and disability is not a bad word. So a good friend of mine helped me wordsmith this title. And so it was like, how do we envision breaking that stigma and turning it into something positive? And so it's all about what is life been within the spokes of my chair. And also because I have newfound freedom using my Rio Mobility Firefly, which you can't really see in the front picture, but that's like an electric third wheel attachment that turns my manual wheelchair into kind of like a power chair slash e-bike type situation. And so that picture on the book, the cover, really shows like, yes, there are many hard stories that go along with disability and medical diagnoses, but there are ways of finding freedom and being in the adaptive world of sports and being out on the trails. And so it's kind of a nod to the cycling world as well as the wheelchair tires.
Very well said, Miss Jenna. Very well said. So, how does or how did you define freedom to yourself? Either an external or internal or combination of both.
I think for me, freedom is that you get to be independent in choosing the things that you want to explore in the world and like how you're going to move throughout the world. So when we as humans have freedom of choice, freedom of ability, freedom of um, choosing how we want to live life, right? There's a lot of people in our world that don't have that right or that privilege. And so um and like I said too, sometimes it's a mental state, it's a mindset, are we seeking out the things that are healthy and mutually beneficial and are good for us, or are we trapped in the stock thinking and the negative mindsets? So um yeah, there's so many aspects of freedom that are a part of my memoir.
So, what insight does the book offer about nature of personal growth?
um so just clarifying, like the nature within personal growth, or like being out in nature and finding that growth.
Either of the two, Miss Jenna.
Okay, sounds good. Um, for me, I grew up as a tomboy, so I loved being out fishing and hunting and doing all the things with my dad and my brother and an elderly neighbor. Um, and then when my disability took over so much more of my life, and being, kind of stuck in a very painful bed, not even using my wheelchair a lot, finding myself in a depression, all those kinds of things. Once I was able to be independent back out in nature and be on paved trails and gravel trails and go and do things that I used to do as a child was amazing. I remember being up at a local inland lake with a new friend to me, and we were in a pine forest. And it was just the weirdest thing because the breeze came and we're sitting at a lake on a dock in this pine forest. And I was like, I have not smelled true pine, like not the fake candles or the air fresheners or, but like true pine woods, fresh air, animals, dirt, all the things. It was like all my senses just became alive. And my friend was like, that is so interesting because I take that for granted. I go out for walks, I'm able to get to all these places. But for her to see my realization in, real time was eye opening for both of us, because we all just live our lives. And until we have those deeper conversations, we don't really understand the perspectives of other people's lived journeys.
Certainly. So, are there any pivotal moments of turning points to your life that serve as an anchors for the narrative?
Yeah, one pretty early on. I had an amazing eighth grade band teacher, and she really inspired me to pursue my education as a music educator. And it wasn't necessarily that I loved music in the sense of like, I want to know this chord versus that chord, or I want to explore this instrument or that instrument. But it was that she made me feel valued and seen and like I belonged. And then because of her belief in me, I was able to go on and enhance my musicality and fight many adult systems that thought, well, why are we revamping school for this one student? Why are we spending all this money to make accommodations for this one kid? And throughout that, we became good friends throughout all of that. And just that ability of supporting a human, like being a good human, supporting the growth of other good humans, which was really inspiring. And she had high expectations for herself, which also was a great role model for me to set high expectations for me and my future students. And another pivotal point for me later in life was 8 years ago, I selected to be a Blandon Community Leadership Program cohort member. And then that led me to becoming a 2020 Bush Fellow. And then that led me to becoming a 2025 Shannon Leadership Institute member. And so just finding that personal growth and finding leadership and learning more about myself, trying to figure out, those childhood traumas, those medical traumas, trying to become a better version of myself. Going through the process of writing my memoir was very hard at times. And I had some good book coaches that came alongside of me. And the best advice they ever gave me was like, when you're writing your memoir, write the things that feel good about that day. So if you don't feel like writing the really hard lemon stories, write some of the lemonade stories. If you don't feel like writing the lemons or the lemonades, like write the meandering path in between. Um, so that really helped in the process of writing that. And even though I'm a veteran wheelchair user, I've been in a chair now for almost 38 years. So being able to go back to those key spots and highlight those people. It's kind of been funny because a couple of my friends, they're out in community, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, Daniel, I read your book." And they're like, "I didn't write a book." And they're like, "Oh, Jenna's book, because I'm in Jenna's book." And so it's just cool that that has happened because that was my goal, like showing that we're all interconnected, we're all interdependent, and that I have no more needs than someone else has, right? Like all humans have needs, we all have basic needs, we all have different ways of meeting those needs. And that's just really cool that that's what I had intended to happen actually has happened.
Certainly. So, Miss Jenna, how did you tackle your background and identity shape your perspective on pain and healing?
For me, a lot of it comes down to my faith. Being able to be isolated from family during medical things, having to do the hard work of physical and occupational therapy, post surgical, in maintenance programs. Like, and the world is different, right? Because when I was a kid back in the early, well, I'd say the late 80s when I was diagnosed, it was that mentality of no pain, no gain, right? And
Yes.
beat your body to a bloody pulp and, and all those really old school ways of thinking. And now when I go through surgeries, they're like, no, you shouldn't have pain. And no, we need to be on top of this so we're not causing more issues. Like, it's very interesting to see how the world and the medical world and the emotional maturity world has changed and how we pursue what healing is and how we pursue the wholeness of a person, and then also like sharing the stories of how we go through that.
So, Miss Jenna, in what ways did your journey challenge traditional nation or notions of resilience?
Yeah. Um, I was always kind of the outcast that never fit any one space. So I floated a lot between different friend groups. I've always been around older people. Like in the writing of my memoir, I really came to the surface of how much I was around adults and much older adults for so many of my formative years. And I'm very blessed that this disability and medical stuff happened when I was a kid because I don't know any different, right? Like I have vague memories of walking and running and cartwheels and all the things that little 6, 7-year-old girls do. Um, but then my life changed and, quite radically, quite, quickly. Um, but I feel like I am a better person now because I've gone through those hard times, and it doesn't negate the hard pain, the hard life lessons, um, and in some ways still some of the trauma that's still there and being worked through, and coming out on the other side to be stronger. But I also see it as I don't want other people to be othered like I was othered. So often it was only my parents' house that was accessible. So I can count on my one hand how many times I got to go to other friends' houses, other friends' birthday parties, other sleepovers. Like, and those relationships were near and dear because that meant that me and my family deeply trusted, those young kids or those other family members or whatever. And yet, there's so many spaces still in life that aren't accessible and are okay for, new little 8-year-old girls in wheelchairs in our community and in our region, in our state, and in our, in the United States. And that makes me super mad. So, you
Yes.
take that passion, you take that anger, you take that, we can do better because we know better. So, that's what created Above and Beyond with You that I talk about at the end of my memoir, the nonprofit that's working to increase accessibility and inclusion. Um, and it's just that passion, like, the Americans with Disability Act passed in 1990, but it's the largest unfunded mandate in the United States history. And so with the nonprofit, it's like, how do we come alongside businesses, communities, governmental agencies to fill those gaps? Because disability is increasing, like disability culture and community is the most um, diverse, because it doesn't matter your ethnic background or your religious beliefs, your family makeup, like, and none of those things matter in my culture, because we all come together, and any diagnosis, any accident or injury can happen at any time. And so it's awesome because disability community and culture is so diverse and such its own amazing tapestry. And so to find the beauty in all of that, which really flips all those scripts on their head, right?
Yes.
So,
Beautifully articulated, Miss Jenna. Very well said. So what will be your inspiring advice for those people out there experiencing what you have right now?
I would say to not give up. Find your people that support you and that understand you. And even if they don't currently get you or understand you, that they show that they're caring and that they want to know you. And on the flip side, for people that are non disabled or not disabled yet, as some people say, um, really work at asking curious questions, because so many times misunderstandings and hurts and additional trauma happen because people make assumptions. So it comes back to the golden rule of treat others how you want to be treated. And sometimes we have to figure out that, how do we treat people better than maybe we want to be treated in our current culture, and the things in ways that we interact with humans.
Yes, it was modified, people. What
Hmm.
you saw is what you reap too.
For sure.
So, what lessons does the book offer about overcoming adversity?
I would say again, don't count the underdog out. Don't make assumptions based on what you see. Um, and also, like I said earlier, it's all about the community. It's all about those relationships that bring people together and keep people together. And I do get pretty honest about, there are relationships in our lives that are just there to serve a certain season of our life or a certain topic in our life, and it's okay to let them go. So don't stay in toxic relationships or toxic situations, because that can impact your physical and medical wellness as well. Um, yeah.
So, Miss Jenna, are there any moments of clarity or epiphany that stand out as a particularly transformative?
I would say in my later chapters, when I'm talking about my leadership journey, like getting over the imposter syndrome and really embracing what other people see are my strengths, and doing the hard work to become the person that you see in yourself. And so, not being afraid of success. A lot of people are afraid of failure, and I'm kind of different, which is not a shocker. But not being afraid of that success, not being afraid of asking for help, because we all need that help. And the journey is so much more richer when we bring other people alongside of us, and we don't have to be the American cowboy doing it all on our own.
Yes, people, if you need help, please ask for help.
Hmm.
And as Ms. Jenna said, don't afraid to commit failure, because failure make you better and better and better. You will learn from it. So before we wrap up our the discussion, Miss Jenna, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, in its fifth season, People, fifth season, with Chef Alessandro, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letters senders all over the world. So please do listen Food 101 wherever you listen your podcast. So Miss Jenna, what is the overall message or takeaway that wants readers to gain from within my spokes?
We are all in this together, and we all have different journeys that start different and traverse the world in different ways, but it doesn't change the worth or the value of any of those lives. And so, embrace the difference and celebrate the tapestry of the people that are brought into your world.
Yes, and stop complaining, people. Count your blessings.
Absolutely.
Yes, even Miss Jenna agreed. Count your blessings. Stop complaining and thank the Lord for have you what you have right now. Miss Jenna Udenberg, thank you so much for sharing your memoir to the world and truly inspiring. So can you please invite your our listeners, okay? Can you please invite our listeners to support within my spokes?
Yeah, so you can find the book on Amazon or on Barnes and Noble, and you can reach out to my nonprofit at Above and Beyond with You, the capital U.org.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Jenna Udenberg because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Jenna, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.